with health. That's right. It's not just about a big bank account. We also work on your physical health, your intellectual health, spiritual health, social health, and today, your mental health. We're focusing on how to improve your mental health regarding your ego. If you've never seen Millionaires Are Made, this is the show built on the fundamental beliefs that every person you meet knows something you don't, and there's something to be learned from everyone in this big, beautiful world. At Millionaires Are Made, we are on a mission to teach the world for free how to grow into the healthiest version of themselves that they can be, and we do so one episode and one topic at a time. In the spirit of authenticity, to try to remove as much bias as possible, we do not talk about tips or advice before the show starts. Backstage, we talk about the show and how it's going to run, and that's it. So what you're about to hear is going to be my first time hearing it as well, and it's going to be all of the advice from each guest's individual life journeys. Woohoo! Audience, this is a very interactive show. Please be sure to leave comments, ask questions. We will ask them live on air. Would love to have as much interaction as possible. We love answering your questions. And I will take this time to do a quick shout out to some of our followers. If you are not following us, you are missing out. Real quick, we're going to give a quick shout out for on Facebook, Max Weltman, Instagram, Jennifer Maxwell, TikTok, Jordan Miranda, and YouTube, Christian Sloan. Thank you all so much for following us. If you want to be a guest on our show, it's free, it's easy. Just sign up at the link that's being dropped right now. We'd love to have you, and we know that you got something to share with the world. And if something in your life is moving around and not going how you want, maybe you need us to throw a show on it. If you've got topic ideas, we love topics. Please send them our way. We will go out and find 3 awesome guests with expertise in that topic and throw an entire show just to help you grow through your speed bump in life. If you like what we do and you love our show, please send some love, like, share, comment, subscribe on YouTube. However it is, send stars, whatever it is, wherever you're watching, that'd be awesome. And if you do like even more knowledge and growth, I do offer free growth consultations. So if you want to get a little one-on-one with me, that link's being dropped right now. I'd love to talk to you and hang out. Huge announcement. We just launched our merchandise like 3 weeks ago. So if you're looking to get a Millionaires Are Made shirt, coffee mug, or calendar, we've had a lot of people ask about it. So we finally launched it. That link is being dropped right now as well. And without further ado, this episode would not be possible without our infamous sponsors. First off, we have Samir Dosani, who is a certified health and nutrition coach. Samir is amazing and had a really, really bad life with health-wise, physical health-wise, declining. And he went and did a bunch of research, got degrees, and studied how the healing power of traditional eating practices, transformed his life, and now he's going to get another PhD in anthropology. Samir is amazing and has some advice and knowledge that I have never heard before. Super smart guy. Next up, we have Jesse Lewis, who is the funniest comedian, hypnotist on the planet. If you throw events or have an event coming up, definitely check out Jesse Lewis. He's super smart as well and does his own really cool podcast. I think I was just on it a couple weeks ago. Our next sponsor is Sarah Jones. Sarah Jones was struggling in life similar to Samir, but hers was her financial health and her marriage. Failing and unhappy, she decided to focus and dedicate her life on how to get out of debt and build financial foundations that last a lifetime. If you want to have a financial foundation and a happy marriage, talk to Sarah Jones. Her link is being dropped right now. She currently now travels the U.S. in an RV with her husband. Fantastic. And our last sponsor, but not our least, is Craig Zukoski, who is an awesome human behaviorist and mentor who helps entrepreneurs discover their true identity and go from here up to here in your life as an entrepreneur. Whew. With all of that done and said, we are now ready to bring out our first guest, who is a very fascinating guy. Everyone, please welcome Alan. Alan, who are you?
Hey, I'm Alan Wiederhold. I am the CEO and founder of Numa Health. I am a veteran, a trauma survivor, and a psychedelic facilitator.
Veteran trauma. Okay. And so, did you just say psychedelics?
I did.
We're doing mental health.
I did.
All
yes.
right. All right. Well, we might get into that a little bit later, but first, I want to ask you a very important question. Yes. Alan, If I wanted to improve my mental health regarding my ego, what tiny piece of advice would you
Yeah,
give me?
I would break it into three different things. So first, I would really cultivate awareness through mindfulness, just really looking at your ego objectively. Like, where are you with it? Noticing where you are without any judgment, and how are you responding to that? And then looking at like mindful meditation and breath work, just like little things like pauses, just to kind of analyze where that is. And then shift your ego from purpose, one from protection, where it's constantly feeding me these negative thoughts, to growth, and doing that by gratitude. And then just asking, is my ego protecting me or is it limiting me? And then what would it look like if I change that mindset to growth and learning instead of fear and insecurity?
Protecting or limiting? Wow, what a great question. You almost should wake up every morning asking
Well,
that,
you
right?
do, and what most people don't realize is that your brain is continually processing. It continually looking for patterns and things off of past stories. So all of the things that we think today that our egos have are all shaped by collective experiences from your home, your neighbors, your church, your school, your political system, everything. And it runs scenarios without even
Right.
realizing it. So when you get out of bed in the morning, there are two scenarios that happen. Is the floor going to be there or is it not? And sometimes you get stuck in the ego, and that's where people get depressed or sad and they can't get out of bed because their brain is telling them, or their ego is telling them, this negative narrative.
Fascinating, fascinating. Okay, all right. So this brings up so much thought. We'll bring it more in the late discussion. Have you ever read a book called Liminal Thinking by Dave
I
Gray?
have, yes.
No way. I thought that was kind of a
Yeah.
reach. All right, that you kind of brought some of that up with your ego, you know. Um, Fascinating. Okay, let's talk about this. Where on your life journey did you learn this
Believe it or
information, this
not,
tip, this
as
advice?
I had built my company to a massive $1 million business, I was burning my life to the ground. And I actually had to go into psychedelic therapy to recover and relive and revisit old trauma. And as part of that, I became a facilitator helping others. And what you start to experience is that everything that you think you thought is coming from somewhere else. So most of our ego tells us past stories that drive future narratives that really don't have any application for today.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Pretty accurate. So you said you were building your big company. Tell
Yeah,
us what
so
your
I
company
used to have an
is.
insurance company. I had a third-party administrator that processed claims. I had 100 employees all over the country. And in the middle of all of that, I wasn't happy. I was in the middle of burning all that to the ground. So on the outside, I looked completely successful, but on the inside, I was dying because I had these old stories from an ego that was really a wounded child that never really had a chance to grow.
Man, that's a similar story to me,
Oftentimes, I think
especially
we
when you
find
think you
that
can
with
feel empty.
successful people is that they're compensating for a wound somewhere else, and there's always two schools. There's one that's the victim that we see outside either panhandling or asking for money, or they've crawled inside of a bottle or something like that. Or you have these successful people who are trying to prove something that there was a wound in there that we never really got a chance to explore.
Fascinating. Oh man. All right, we're gonna be talking for hours. All right, Alan, we're gonna move on to Eve. We'll get back to you in just a sec. This round robin, I already could tell is gonna be a good one. All right, where's Eve at? Eve, tell us, who are you?
Hi, Austin. Thank you for having me on. My name is Eve. I am a real estate investor, but really transitioned within the consciousness space. I realized that being in real estate, especially being really big in social media, we really play a lot of influence. And I had attracted a lot of people who wanted to get into real estate, obviously, to break free from their financial burdens and make some money. And one of the topics that I always like to uncover whenever I do coaching in real estate is that you should be doing it because you love it, not because it makes money, because money is a byproduct of what you love. it's not so much what it is. So it really transitioned into finding purpose, and that's kind of where it's transitioned how consciousness coaching had really evolved for me, because it was really uncovering what it is that they wanted to do, and trusting and believing that money and success and authenticity within all of that is a byproduct of that pursuit.
So let me ask you this: what do you love about real estate?
To be honest with you, this was actually before also I had uncovered deep depths of myself as well. It really was a lot of synchronicities that had opened up the path for me. I didn't really know that I was going to go into real estate when I had quit my 9 to 5 job when I was 24 years old. I just knew that there was more to the world than the four walls that I worked in the financial institution. And after I kind of, once I left that work, because I felt like I never really saw the sun, like it was really interesting to kind of live a life where it was, you take the train underground, you'd never see the sun because it's so early in the morning. My cubicle was like in the middle of the office. I never saw the sun then. And then when I'd finish work, I still never saw the sun. And I figured, I said, like, I feel like I deserve to see the sun, just like how you are and where you are. And so when I quit my job, I figured, I was like, you know what? I'll just allow what about to happen is about to happen. And I came across renovation project management, and then everything else had unfolded for real estate. And I just became really good at executing strategies because I was so passionate about showing, finding out the numbers and then making it work in real life. And that's how I found that passion in there.
Awesome. All right, sounds like a plan. Eve, I've got a very important question for
Yeah.
you. If I wanted to improve my mental health regarding my ego,
Mhm.
what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
Well, I wanted to go into understanding three parts of it, right? First part, and I want to break this down, is um, most people don't know that they operate out of paradigms, right? That's the subconscious mind that we inheritedly have. And that's actually something I called the generational curse. And it's interesting because my legacy changed from building generational wealth to breaking generational curses. And so making awareness that we are operating from that subconscious programming or that existing paradigm. And the second part of it is making consciousness of that. And how do you make consciousness of that transition? Well, we make conscious transitions all the time. So creating awareness of consciousness transition. So right now you're hearing my voice, but if someone was, let's say wherever you are, you wanted to tune into the ocean and you wanted to transition that vibrational consciousness, you would probably hear the ocean right behind you because you know how your mind works and how it transitions and how it absorbs information. Now, most people are not aware of their own conscious transition, and this is where people don't know what meditation is. There's a lot of obviously different types of meditation, but meditation is really understanding where your conscious awareness is really focused into, and focusing on knowing that transition is imperative to understanding what you are, because what you are not the thoughts that's coming into your mind or the outer external world. It's actually you deciding that and knowing who you are innately. And there's that deeper journey to go into. And the third part is knowing that we have everything essentially that we need in order for us to do whatever that we need to do. And that's why we have this innate desire to continue and unfold different experiences. The problem is, whenever we unfold different experiences, unless we make conscious awareness that we are subconsciously programmed within this existing paradigm, we then take the past, which is the ego, the story of the self, who we think we are, as opposed to really focusing on what we want. And I was listening to I don't know if you've ever heard Neville Goddard, but I like to have him in my ear, especially in the morning. And one of the things he says is when you tune into the radio, you don't tune into what you don't want. You only tune into what you want. The same way people can tune into this podcast because they want to learn something. It's the same with experiences. right? What kind of experience do we want? Don't think of what had happened in the past or what our past experiences are. It's really just knowing that whatever is the byproduct of that thought is what will come into manifestation, even if it's not what we want, because when we think of it, it comes into that manifestation. And so it's really important to create that conscious awareness of determining what it is that we want and making that habit of identifying what it is that we want. So intentional, conscious alteration of that state of vibration.
Awesome. I love it, Eve. Very, very in-depth description. I like it. So you told us a little bit about how you got started. Tell us more about where you learned this piece of advice.
You know what it is too? How I learned this is, um, my family, I was born in like a Christian denomination. And one of the things that I believed is that we have everything, and this is where I didn't even try, or I didn't even look into anything like psychedelics yet. I didn't even know those were options. I just knew that whatever I was feeling, whatever pressure that I was feeling within the outer physical world, whether it's stress within the real estate space or stress within relationships, it was that I realized that I don't need anything. If I just sit down and close my eyes and just rest on a blank state of thought, which is like one of my mentors really had encouraged me to, is to actually sit down and meditate, I would really find more of myself. And that's really most of the journey is within that intentional meditation. Obviously guided by the people that were around me that mirrored that ideology as well. To say the answers you're looking for is not on the outside, because everything in the outside is impermanent. And what it is you need to do is you need to find these answers that's within you. And so I've really practiced meditation a lot, and that's an intentional meditation, and that's something that really transcended myself consciously, emotionally, and regulate everything that I'm experiencing or internally.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eve. We're going to move on to our next guest, and we'll bring you out for the round robin.
Mhm.
Man, some serious insight there. You have to watch that interview 5 times over and over again. Thank you so much, Eve.
Welcome.
Next up, we've got Nina and Christian. Nina and Christian, tell us, who are you guys?
Well, you could call us husband and wife entrepreneurs. We are homeschool parents of 6. We are health coaches by trade. We've been doing this for about 20 years, and we have seen just about everything you can imagine in the health and wellness world. And currently, we help people detoxify and heal from just about anything, including mental, upstream, emotional baggage that we bring to the process of trying to get well.
Right. Everything he said, yes.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm interested in one little piece of advice. Nina, Christian, if I wanted to improve my mental health regarding my ego, what piece of advice would you give me?
I would say take your thoughts captive. That would probably be one of the biggest things you can do. So if you can ask yourself the question, is what I'm telling myself something I could prove to be true? Often that will be the waypoint into a window of self-reflection where you can analyze the fact that I'm filling gaps of things I don't know. And there's a possibility that some of the assumptions I'm working from are not correct.
Right.
And if you don't understand that sometimes you're filling narrative gaps inappropriately, and those can lead to all sorts of awkward moments. They can lead to self-identity. They can lead issues. They can lead to self-pity. They can lead to looping anxiety,
Right.
often from something that's not even true to begin with.
And we spend a lot of time in this space kind of navel gazing, but that also applies to other people's scenarios as well. Every time you make an assumption in your story about what's happening, ask yourself, is there possibly some information that I don't have here? And am I making assumptions about the people around me, the relationships I have in my life that are maybe not true? And it really gives, it coats everything in like just this layer of grace. It opens up a space that frees you a little bit more from judgment and puts you in a space of curiosity. And I think that is where most people could really work on, is becoming more curious about their scenarios, because that curiosity then opens them up to other possibilities.
I like it. Guys, where on your life journey did you learn this advice?
Oh, man, I probably learned it the most just repeat it. I may be slow on the uptake, but I've been a coach. I've probably got 20,000 hours of one-on-one coaching, and watching other people tell totally false stories about themselves, or stories that have so many possible alternate explanations for what's actually happening in their life, what the other person meant, the person that cut them off in traffic, and any number of stories where people tell obvious falsehood helped me say, geez, I wonder if I'm doing the same thing. And another book I read was the classic How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, when he said, everyone in the world goes through their life assuming they're right all of the time. And if we just do the math on that, that's impossible. And it helped me turn the mirror back on myself and say, where am I making assumptions I can't verify? Where am I reasoning from stories that I can't actually prove to be true? And where might there be an alternate explanation that actually makes more sense? And to Nina's point, offers more grace.
And I also think, if I could just have my own answer to that, if it's okay, I don't want to take up too much time, Austin, but being a mom, like being a parent, you are constantly confronting. I have kids from the ages of 1 to 18. So I feel like I'm on all spectrums of this parenting journey. You're constantly hearing the feedback from your kids about the scenario that they're sitting in. And you're asking, hey, wait a second. There's maybe some gaps in your understanding of this. I do this all day long with my kids. So to Christian's point, I think parenting makes you definitely aware of where your ego gets in the way, because you're monitoring all these other egos at the same time as you're monitoring your own.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Lucky parents, I guess.
It's true.
You learn a lot.
Parenting
is
like a self-improvement course disguised as, raising up little adults.
It really is. Yeah. You want to have your selfishness confronted, get married, and have kids. It will be all in your face constantly.
That's wise advice. Wise advice, Christian. All right, guys, we're going to move on to our round robin. We'll bring you guys back out in just a second here. Audience, this is a fantastic time to ask questions and comments as we come into our round robin. And we'll start with Alan. Alan, can you quickly refresh what your tip was?
Yeah, observe mindfulness, just understanding where those thoughts are actually coming from. So, and then really being able to just pause and to reflect on what the story is behind the story.
Awesome. Eve, what are your thoughts on Alan's tip?
I think it's great. It's definitely something that everybody needs to focus on. I definitely believe that I remember when I was getting into mindfulness myself, I didn't really know what mindfulness meant. And it had to come in like a different language for me. Like they were like, it actually came for me as a term of like kind of conscious awareness of what it is, because it was such a foreign idea for me. But definitely I do agree with you, Alan.
Okay.
And Nina and Christian, what are your thoughts on Alan's tip?
Yeah, I think it's a different way of saying similar thoughts of what we said. If you can't observe what it is that you're thinking, if you can't self-reflect and honestly evaluate the merits or the truth of what you said, you have a really hard time in life, because there's inevitably going to be times where you misperceive something, and observation is the key to say, no, maybe I am making assumptions I can't verify. So yeah, well said.
Mm-hmm.
All right, real quick, let's break this down a little for the audience. Can you guys tell me, what is the ego? What is an ego? How do you define it? Anyone?
I'll just say that the way I see it is the idea of the self, who we think we are within the outer physical world, the stories of the self, the past, the ideas of even expectations of the future, all of those which components that takes us away from the actual present moment to which we are brought into, and what we're supposed to unfold to where we are, because that's where the magic happens, right? So ego is really anything outside of the present moment. So whenever we start collecting data from the past or creating these expectations in the future, that's my definition for it.
I like that, Eve. I'm a homeschool mom of 6, like I said, so I like pictures. So I figure if we're a circle, right, and then our ego is the very outermost circle. It's the environment that we operate in, that is our day-to-day, everyday, walking out, interaction-based, what people see of us. It's this outside circle. And then, of course, we are layered, right? We're like onions, as Shrek says. So the all the different things that Alan was mentioning are sort of those layers underneath the external. And so when we operate under on our ego, which is this outer circle, what we're talking about is using the layers inside of our circle to then influence our outer circle and not just being so reactionary.
Yeah, the way I always like to say it, this is our meat suit, and everything that we're walking around in the meat suit is based on past stories.
That is
So,
sexy. I like
everything-
that better than a circle. I'd rather be a meat suit.
We're just a meat suit.
Yeah, I
Do you have
actually
anything to
use
add to that, Christian?
I could, but I guess ego often is just the stories that we're telling ourselves. Is what I come back to. It's who we think we are, where we think we matter or don't matter, what worth we do or don't have. Are we doing enough? Whatever that word means. And if we don't have some sort of solid reasoning frame to say this is enough, or why do I need to keep proving something, and do what we've been talking about, self-reflect, then yeah, our ego can get away from us, and we have this image that we then have to protect, or we attempt to protect, that really just, it becomes a spiral that we don't want to be in. And there's a kinder way to go about being in this world of just humility and curiosity, as Nina talked about. Like, hey, I don't know everything. Wow, wouldn't it be fun if I learned something here, rather than try to impose my view of the world on whatever situation I find myself in.
Yeah, you can tell Christian spends a lot of time with people that are struggling with their ego. And so the best questions are questions to ask that get people to question themselves in this story they're telling themselves. And one of the things that I really love is this idea that people will not act on your advice or guidance. They'll tolerate it. They'll act on their own ideas. And one of the best ways to get people to challenge their ego, or to confront where their ego may be misaligned with their true heart, those layers underneath, is just to ask them what they think about this ego presentation, right? And that's where you see people go in the aha moments, like what Eve was talking about. They shift. Actually, I'm not in alignment with what's actually deep inside of me. My projections are false. And so when you can be a good question asker and get people to recognize that in themselves, now you are finally making or facilitating change in someone else's life.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it earlier too when you talked about my truth. We all have our own versions of truth, and those truths usually come from stories from somewhere else. So, and they may not actually be true. Our ego thinks they are, but it's really being able to ask those questions to say what is real, what is not real, what is fact, and what is truth.
All right, we've got a question from the audience here. How can I overcome my ego's negative influences on my relationships?
I love that question.
Yeah, when it comes to relationships, there's a understanding the dynamic of the relationship and where you contribute to the tension. If you can own your contribution to any tension that comes up and say, no, that's on me. I can do better at this. And often, if you, depending on the person and how you're reasoning with them, if you can say, I realize I'm part of this relationship, I'm half of it, and I know I can do better. And when I do such and such that may be off-putting, or maybe rubs you the wrong way, I want to give you permission to point it out, and I promise I won't respond negatively when you do that, because I want to get better at this. That's a great start. And what you're doing is mirroring for them something that feels good, and subtly training them that maybe this could go both ways. And sometimes you just have to be the one that goes first, and you have to take one for the team for a while before the other person gets it. But that's a great way to start to grease the chute to make relationships easier.
I love that. I always tell my kids the two most important things are patience and grace. So if we were engaged in a conversation, just understanding that everyone has their own stories, and they're all coming from their own place, and then questioning where those are and how you fit into the conversation, just what you're saying. So am I projecting my views on you, or am I open, or am I accepting to the conversation, and what am I doing to escalate it, de-escalate, or contribute?
Yeah.
There's a fascinating. So Alan and I talked earlier about this book called Liminal Thinking, which has become, I mean, it's actually a really simple, short book, but it comes up everywhere all the time. If you haven't read it, I would take the hour and a half and go read it. But it really boils down to, it talks about ego beliefs, your past and your views on life become your ego. But one of the favorite things is just they use the age-old thing about three blind guys in a room with an elephant. One's holding the ear, says it's a fan. One guy's holding the snout or whatever, the trunk, and says it's a rope or whatever it is. They all have three different visions of what the item is, and they're arguing about it. And the more you can like realize and think about that, even in other discussions, especially let's go politics. The more you can think about that in politics, the proof is that you'll never know reality. Nobody can ever know all of reality. It's just so vast and so out there, right? And so you only know your liminal reality, the parts that you've seen and experienced in your life, which is like 0.001% of 0.001% of all of reality in the universe, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a really good way. I might have to read that again now that we talked about that, Alan. It's good to kind of refresh on that. Remember that it's kind of like we're just a speck on a floating rock in the midst of space, but then our feelings are even smaller than that.
Yeah.
And our knowledge there too. And another book, obviously, I'm surprised nobody's brought it up yet. The Power of Now with Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about multiple levels of ego and how to analyze those, converse with those, and figure out what you're doing there.
Yeah.
I assume you've all read Power of Now.
Yeah, amazing.
I don't think I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eve, as you were talking too, I was thinking there was an Austrian scientist who actually created an experiment. He took a pair of glasses and he created these prisms and mirrors inside of them, and he flipped the world upside down. And he had his staff actually wear these glasses. And for the first week, you can imagine what would happen. So because your brain is already trained to think one way, you stumble into everything. The most miraculous thing that happened, though, after the first week is that your brain adapted to being able to walk upside down. So you literally could walk like you were right side up, except upside down. But after the third week, when you took the glasses off because you wore them every day, your brain naturally saw the world upside down. So just like what you're saying, Austin, your brain can be triggered and trained to be able to see things that are based on our own experience.
Yeah.
Fascinating. It was a fascinating science experiment.
Yeah, I want to just chime in on the question because I think it's one of the visuals that came to me. We live in three planes of understanding. We're spiritual creatures. We have intellect and we live in physical bodies. Who we truly are these conscious, like energetic bodies. And every experience are just these thought energies that we alter our state of vibration to experience. And so, meaning if like all of these are just energetic thoughts, that means all thoughts are neutral. And so, if we are telling ourselves that there's a negative influence, it means we are the ones creating that story because we are the creators of our own story. And so, when we come to consciousness of that truth, that everything is just this thought energy that is actually neutral, it is a good mirror of our internal world and what is going on with us. Because at the end of the day, we're really going into universal truth here. It even says in the Bible, right? Iron sharpens iron as man sharpens another. And so when we find these triggering points within our outer physical world, meaning our relationships, it is a good mirror of us on what it is that we need to create conscious awareness of. And when I went back to those 3 steps that I went back into, I talked about the paradigm that we operate into. And so creating consciousness of that unconscious habits is the first part, because otherwise it doesn't just show up in that relationship. I'm sure when you come conscious awareness of this thought process, you'll find that it exists in everything else. It'll exist not just in that one existing relationship, but in any other circumstances within your life, because it is not that one event that had happened that you tell the story of what you think happened. It actually happens in multiple ways, because the issue is how you tell the story about yourself and how you see yourself in that story.
I love it. Brilliant addition, Eve. All right, guys, we are at the point where we need to come up with our daily challenge. So we have to work together to come up with a task or series of tasks. It takes less than 5 minutes a day, costs $0, is available to anyone in the world, and helps us improve our mental health regarding our ego. What thoughts do you have?
I would just start with take your thoughts captive, and what that practically means is write them down. If you don't have a place where you take your thought and you can see it on paper, and I would say on paper, not on a screen, because there's something that connects deeper with you when you have to write it down. So take your thought captive, put it on paper so you can get distance from it and analyze it more objectively.
Mhm.
I always like to
Mhm.
throw out a challenge. So the very first thing that you do in the morning, that's usually what you're a disciple of, and you're being formed by it. So if you can get up in the
Mhm.
morning, the very first thing, and just get on your knees and give gratitude for your partner next to
Mm.
you. There might have been a fight the night before, or the morning you're not feeling exactly loving, but just give gratitude for being alive, for the opportunities that come together during the day, good, bad, indifferent. There are opportunities for growth. And I would do that at the very beginning of the day, and then go into a pause and breathe. And then I love Christian journaling, writing it out. I think that's perfect.
Yeah, and I believe what I like to do when I wake up first thing in the morning is I always like to ask myself, what is it that I want to experience? Because from that energetic state that I always try to, not try to, but really embody at moment by moment, is that I know that everything I have is here and now. It's just a matter of altering that state of consciousness into experiencing what it is that I want to experience. And so when I ask myself, what do I want to experience, whether it's written down, and this is as I get up from my bed. This is just, it trains my mind that I am in control. So it doesn't matter if I step outside and maybe my nephew's outside screaming. If I train myself to say, hey, I'm gonna have a good day, I'm gonna smile, I'm gonna have joy, and I'm just saying feelings into my head, it allows myself to gain conscious awareness of those intentions throughout the day, and obviously followed by that active journaling, like Christian said. Then that expounds on the experience in more particular ways. So definitely that would be a great challenge, because if we don't do that, then we become reactive of our own experiences,
Hmm.
where it's like, if my nephew's coming out and screaming and just hugs me covered in whatever he's covered in, it would be like, what's going on, right? Because I never created the experience that it could be joyful, it could be funny, it could be happy, it could bring me something that synchronistically opened up my world to other things. So yeah, it's just something that I try to create for myself in automation, so that when it comes to writing, I can just expound on it as well.
All right, I have bad news. So we've done almost 150 of these podcasts, and journaling and affirmations and gratitude are very common challenges. So I'm going to override that, and we're going to do something that tries to focus on the ego, and I need some help. So I think when we'll think about the day before and think about a situation that you were not perfectly happy. I like the idea that Christian said of writing it down. Um, and then I would love you guys' help on what do we want to do about that situation. So let's just say it's an altercation at a store, or maybe let's just say someone cuts you off in traffic, right? It doesn't have to be an extremely crazy thing. That doesn't happen every day. So you think back yesterday to something that made you less than perfectly happy. Someone cut you off in traffic. So we're going to write this down and write down how it made us feel. What else about that situation would make us think about our ego and how our ego affected that?
Well, I didn't get to go. If I may still
Oh yeah,
visit the
go.
last one, because my answer was different than gratitude journaling and all those things. But
Thank
okay,
God. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. They're
I
all great
think
answers. We've just done them
I'm
a bunch
sure,
of
I'm sure, because all those things are really good practices. But I think about this almost every day. Do something freaking hard. And the reason, and it's like, it's similar to my sister. I shouldn't have said my sister. Someone that I know was having marital problems and went to a counselor and was so irritated that the counselor said, go on a date with your husband. And I literally thought that was the most brilliant advice, because where you are having friction, where you're needing to change, you need to step into that arena, and that's the only way you're going to be able to get feedback to yourself about what is actually wrong, because you can't fix a problem that you can't identify. And so I think about that in my own life. I've got 6 kids. I'm running a homeschool. I'm monitoring our own business. I'm coaching clients. I'm giving people advice. And half the time I get frustrated isn't the word, but how am I supposed to help you change and help you grow and help you accelerate into new levels of success in your life if you're not actually willing to step into the hard? And so, and I think Jordan Peterson talked about this. He was like, I don't care what you do. If you just choose to not take the shortcut home and sit at the red light that's 5 minutes at 7 o'clock at night. If that's your hard, choose your hard, because what comes up for you is then the fodder to then self-reflect, ask yourself, who am I becoming? We change when we are in opportunities of resilience. And we don't actually get to work and flex our resilience muscles unless we're putting ourselves in places, whether it's the gym workout that you keep shirking, or it's the diet you need to fix that you just want to. We're creatures of comfort. And so I just think that one very simple advice, I'm already being too long-winded, Austin, sorry. Do something freaking hard.
I love that.
Every day.
All right, added that. So we're gonna think of a situation that happened the day before that made us less than happy, and then use some, try to remove our ego and see how that might have been good for the other person, how they might have thought that they were in the right. And then I think I like that. I like Nina's little addition there with do something that don't take the easy road, take the hard road in one of your tasks, one of your days, and go on a date with your husband. Apparently that's hard for her.
That's great advice too, because I am a big believer in cold plunging. So 30 seconds in 49-degree water. Then you kind of work your way up from that. And I do that every morning.
I haven't seen 49-degree water in a year.
I know you haven't. Well, I mean, I think there's a book, Austin, by Brandon Dawson called The 9-Figure Mindset. And one of the things that he says about a situation, it doesn't matter how bad the situation is, he calls it the 4 A's. So acknowledge where you are. Just acknowledge whatever it is. And then you accept it. If you can accept where you are, good, bad, and different, again, they're all stories. And then you can accelerate to the direction you want to go. It might be hard. It might be having to go on a date with your husband. And then when you're there, you're now able to turn, and really drive that growth. But it's really first beginning to just accept it and acknowledge it. And then to start asking your questions about that.
Yeah, I want to chime in to actually what you're saying, Alan, is that acknowledgement part is that conscious alteration of that state of focus, right? So when we feel our emotions rising or in any state of change, right, we can easily change what we focus into, whether, let's say, we are angry because someone cut us off, but change your consciousness to the sound of the music. When you notice that you actually have that innate power in that transition, exactly what Alan said, which is that awareness. There is that power within that awareness. And that power can be utilized to executing, doing the hard, to executing, making different choices from what we are innately feeling at that time. And so consciousness is the key to that transition, is knowing that there is the awareness of where we are and saying, okay, I can actually just look at my steering wheel and say, oh, my steering wheel is nice and warm, and just create that thought, because our senses are always perceiving something anyway. So just change that alteration of consciousness to what your senses is perceiving, whether it's cold or hot outside. Once you notice that change in your consciousness, take that power and use it to something that it is that you want, whether it is that hard that you want or whether that is that productive thing that you want to execute on.
Yeah, recognize that doing something hard doesn't mean you're off course. Yeah. Just sometimes you got to lean into it. That may mean that this is where most people quit, and you don't need to be the one that quits. So lean into what you don't know. Lean into there's a book I read many years ago called Mind Hacking Happiness, and he uses the phrase "the me." So when you get cut off in traffic, your spouse gives you a sideways glance, or you get an email you don't like, you can say, "Whoa, the me feels really unseen, irritated, frustrated," or like fill in that blank. You start some level of self-validation, but you wedge logic into an otherwise emotional moment where your emotions want to take over and just become this, righteously indignant bull or bully that needs to create a little bit of carnage until I've offloaded that stress, and just to be able to pause and say, whoa, the me feels really frustrated right now. I am really irritated. And it gives you enough space to actually change your behavior, and your ego doesn't get to just rule you and boss you around.
Are we doing a good job, Austin? Are you getting better answers?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know. I've heard
you guys are great,
before.
but
that was good. Good job.
We do have to wrap this show up, so we're gonna end it right about there. Thank you guys so much. Super insightful. I knew we'd go overtime as soon as the 4 of you were starting to talk. I knew there was a lot to unwrap around. Thank you guys so much. We got our daily challenge. We got lots of insight. I'm going to put you guys backstage. We're going to wrap it up. And thank all of you, audience, for watching another episode of Millionaires Are Made. We talked a lot about ego and how it can affect your day-to-day life. We've got a sweet daily challenge and so much insight. You might have to watch that episode a few times because there's a lot of nuggets dropped all over the place there about how your mental health and your ego are so tied together. A couple books were mentioned. One of them was Liminal Thinking by Dave Gray. Alan and I talked about that a little bit. Oh man, I forgot the other. Oh, Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now was another one we talked about. You can go check out. But thank you guys so much.